Hi authors, I'm Tiffany Yates Martin. I'm the founder of Foxprint Editorial, a career book editor, and the author of Intuitive Editing, and this is Editing Quick Tips. Today I wanted to share with you one of the most useful questions that you can use when you're editing your own work. But before we go into that, it might be useful to kind of talk about the differences between editing and revising. Basically, editing is assessing and revising is addressing. What I mean by that is editing is what I do as a book editor. It's when I go through a manuscript and I'm looking to see whether it's as strong as it could be, where it might be strengthened to be more effective, where it could be tightened, what might be missing, what might need development. Revising is what you as the author then do with that information. Once you know what might need to be addressed, then you go in and you figure out how to address it. They're similar, they're often used interchangeably, but editing is what authors are usually talking about when they talk about how difficult it can be to edit and revise their own work. Revising is something you already know how to do. It's just another outgrowth of writing. It's developing, it's deepening, it's clarifying your intentions. Editing can be hard because to be a really good editor of your own work, you have to get objectivity. And the reason that's hard on your own story is because you know it so well, you're filling in all of the blanks. So it's hard to tell what's on the page and what's just in your head that you're assuming readers may be picking up on. So the question that's really useful to ask when you're editing your own work, assessing it, is how do you know? What I mean by that is it on the page? The thing that you're trying to convey, is it on the page? Where is it on the page? How might your reader pick up on your intention? Now, what does that actually look like? Well, for example, on a big picture story level, it could be things like backstory. Let's say your character grew up in, with emotionally repressed parents in a small southern town. She always dreamed of being an actor, but she didn't do it, feels thwarted, works as an accountant. All of those are crucial pieces of information for me to know about her as the reader, but how do I know them? Have you shown them? Have you told them? Does she speak in a southern accent? Do we see maybe we see the outgrowth of growing up in a household like that, and we see her thinking about a specific memory about her family that tells us that this was an emotionally repressive household. It doesn't matter how you put it on the page, you'll figure that out in revisions. Right now, as you're editing, all you're trying to do is pinpoint, is it on the page at all? Or how do we know what your character wants, the goal, and why your character wants it? What motivates your character? Where have you put that on the page for us? How do we know what he or she stands to gain or lose in achieving or failing to achieve it? Have you put it on the page? Can you pinpoint exactly where? But it also refers, you can look at it on a scene-by-scene level, on almost a moment-by-moment level. How do we know what's going on with a character right now, for example? How do we know what your character is feeling, how they're reacting, how they feel about other characters? Where on the page have you conveyed that to us? Now, one thing that makes this hard as you are filling in the blanks is that it's hard to assess it because to you it may be crystal clear. For example, let's say you have a husband and a wife, and in your mind they're fighting. They have a difficult marriage, and you want to illustrate that as he's leaving for work. He says, "Well, I love you," and she barely looks up from her whatever she's doing and just goes, You may think you've conveyed that this is a troubled couple, that they're fighting, whatever it is you think your intention is. But nuance is important, and this is a subjective pursuit. So every reader might take something different from that. For example, maybe I see a woman who's just distracted or busy. Maybe somebody else sees a woman who is listening to a podcast, or maybe they see hurt in that reaction. So can you convey nuance that gives us a more specific idea of what your intention is on the page? Or how do we know a situation is dangerous or urgent? You may think you've paved that in, but what is making the reader understand that? Is it the character's reaction? Is it seeing the action that's happening on the page? Is it being told that something is dangerous? How do we know where your character has just come from, or what his state of mind is, or what his immediate goal is? How do we know how he feels about the other characters in the scene, or how he's reacting? All of this are things that you can identify as you're editing your own work. The way that you can see whether your intentions have come across to readers is by bringing this question in. Do it on an overall level with the big picture stuff. Have you conveyed your stakes? Have you conveyed who your character is? Have you conveyed what the plot is? Do we see the suspense and tension? And then try to go in and do it on a scene by scene level. And every single scene where you think you're conveying one thing, see if you can identify where and how you're doing that so that the reader can also pick up on it. It'll provide a really good blueprint for revisions. Once you see what the problem is, once you've assessed that, you'll know how to go in and address it. This has been Editing Quick Tips. I'm going to be doing more of these. If there are specific issues that you have or challenges that you have that you'd like to see me address, please let me know in the comments below. You'll also find my website there, which is really loaded up with resources. And I also have online courses if that's of interest. Thanks for joining me.